I'm just going to walk you through here the assignment for Sunday, which is to answer the first 3 discussion journals for Sandra Cisneros. We're focusing on the short story 11 this week. That's available in Blackboard. I've also sent it in previous emails. So what I'm going to do in this video is I will explain each of these 3 questions, and that's about it. So for number 1, you're going to summarize the plot of the short story in 4 to 5 sentences. Since it's a summary, it should be in your own words and you shouldn't have any direct quotations. These questions are here to guide you here, and if you were to answer those questions, you would have a full summary. Who's the main character? What are the plot points or events in the story? What's the conflict and the problem of the story, and how are those things resolved? So you want to set us up with who is the main character, what's going on with the main character, and then once you see on really at the end of the first page, beginning of the second page, the events of the story starting to take place, you can start talking about the conflict. So, what is going on with this character? Which other character is our narrator in conflict with, and why? And then at the end, what's the resolution? So, in other words, how does it turn out? It shouldn't be like a crazy long summary. And just to give you some idea, I've given you some formats at the end of this document. So as you can see, this really shouldn't be like a crazy long summary. Your analysis for this story is going to be a lot of it in question number 3. Question number 2, the short story is called 11, and that's because the story takes place on the character's 11th birthday. So, question number 2 is something that I'm suggesting you answer after having read the story a couple times. It's only 3 pages. So read the story a couple times, and then look through your notes. Again, I hope you're taking notes while you're reading. And then answer in 1 or 2 sentences. And the reason I say to read it a couple times is because you might feel tempted to answer this right after reading the first page, because the first page, you're in the narrator's head, and the narrator is discussing exactly this, how she feels about her birthday. But the events of the story obviously contribute to that answer too. So that's why I would say hold off until the end for answering that. And you can see based on the format here that this should be a fairly straightforward answer, in that I'm not asking for a full paragraph with quotations and whatnot. Another thing to notice about this document is that in bold here, you have the directions as to how to answer. In other words, what I'm expecting from these answers. Question number 3 deserves a little bit more discussion and a little bit more explanation. In our classes this week, we went through the story just a little bit, and we had a discussion based on question number 3. So I'll read it, and then I'll break down the question. What does the issue with the sweater have to do with the narrator's birthday, and what symbolic meaning might the sweater have? So, first of all, if you have written a clear summary, you should be able to build off of that in describing the issue with the sweater. So in the story, there's a conflict between the narrator and her teacher over a sweater. So, describing that conflict, basically what is happening there, And what does that have to do with the narrator's birthday? Okay. So that is essentially a coming-of-age question. Remember, that's the unit that we're in. Stories about growing up, stories about becoming an adult and realizing things about the world. And so this is not an accident that this conflict over the sweater happens on the character's birthday. And so we have to think that this conflict over the sweater is about more than just the sweater and about more than just who the sweater belongs to. And that's why we have the third part of the question, which is what symbolic meaning might the sweater have? So in looking at a symbolic meaning, you always want to look at what is the object, what does the object look like, and what does the object do? In this case, we're talking about a sweater. A ratty, old, ugly, itchy, smelly sweater that no one wants and no one wants to be associated with. It's also important that the sweater is bright red. So think about what that does, that color red, in terms of human beings in the room noticing it. And in general, in this question, you want to be thinking about adolescence and the trials of adolescence, and the whole idea of what happens on a birthday. So the birthday is supposed to be a time for celebration. Does the narrator see this as a time for celebration? The idea of entering an awkward age where you're not quite a little kid anymore, but you're not quite a teenager yet. And it's also an age where people feel chronically embarrassed and awkward, and they feel like they're pretty much on display for the others. And so what are some things that people start to notice at that age about the state of the world? What do they notice about power dynamics between adults and children, or even between adults and other adults? So those are some things to be thinking about in terms of this question for this story. And again, back to the idea of symbolism. What does this particular sweater do to whoever is wearing it? And so again, you want to be thinking about the sweater as a concrete object, but standing in for a larger, more abstract idea. So what is the larger, more abstract idea that the narrator is trying to get across here? And you can see for this question, the template is a lot longer. I do want a well thought out topic sentence that answers the question, a good quote, paraphrase, and plenty of analysis. Again, you don't have to follow this completely, but you should have all of those parts to your response. All right, I hope that helps.